Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. I call this meeting of the Executive Committee to order. It is my duty to remind you of your duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict. Refrain from participating in any matter when there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. Please note of any conflict at the appropriate time. Moving on to the next item, we will now move to the approval of minutes. The proposed minutes of the Executive Committee of July 24, 2025 are posted on SharePoint. Is there a motion to approve, change, or modify those minutes? Approve. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any chair motion carries. Proposed minutes of the council meeting on July 25, 2025 are posted on SharePoint. Is there a motion to recommend approval of those minutes? Someone have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The chair, the ayes have it, motion carries. At this time, I'd like to welcome Ashley Campbell, who's a former state bar counselor and currently the executive director of Legal Aid of North Carolina, to share an update on the happenings of and issues facing legal aid. Ashley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So nice to see all of you, many friends in the room. For those of you who have not met before, my name is Ashley Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Aid of North Carolina. And until last December, I was a member of the State Bar. It's really great to see all of you. I've missed you this year. So I'm here to talk to you about Legal Aid of North Carolina and the impacts on the IOLTA freeze, and also to answer any questions that you may have about that. I really appreciate, Mr. Chairman, the opportunity to be here and to talk to you about it, to make sure that you have accurate information that you can share with your local bars if questions come up about this. The first thing I want to do is I want to express deep gratitude to the bar, and in particular to Matt, to Peter, to Mary Irvine with IOLTA, and others who have worked really hard this year to preserve that funding for civil legal aid for the programs across the state. IOLTA gave out $12 million in grants last year, which of course we as a bar council approved. Half of those went to legal aid. So we received $6.3 million in grants. We've received IOLTA funding for over 3 decades and historically received about half of the funding. The reason for that is that we're the largest legal aid provider in North Carolina. We're actually one of the largest nonprofit law firms in the country. I think there's a lot of folks who really don't know sort of the scope and breadth of what we do. We closed 24,000 cases last year. And we have 24 offices across the state, including 12 in rural areas. So, you know, of course, we're the only law firm in North Carolina that serves all 100 counties. Rural service is a deep part of our mission. We have offices that have been open since the 1970s in some of these rural locations. The IOLTA freeze is going to have a devastating impact on legal aid. There's no other way to put it. It is 20% of our civil legal aid funding, and we are absolutely going to have to close offices as a result. I have been working very hard this year to communicate to members of the legislature about this issue and to provide as much information as I possibly can about the work that we do, the work that we don't do, and I want to talk about that in a minute, and how the IOLTA freeze is going to disproportionately impact rural areas and why. So a couple of things I want you to know. We only do civil legal aid. We do not engage in any political or policy advocacy at all. We are prohibited by federal law from doing so because we receive money from the Legal Services Corporation. And no one is contending that we do. We also only represent undocumented people in very narrow circumstances. So for example, we are allowed to represent undocumented people who are victims of crime. So we represent a lot of people who are involved, who are victims of trafficking. Law enforcement actually refers a lot of people to us for representation, because if you're a victim of trafficking, law enforcement needs those people to testify in those criminal cases. And our immigration system in the United States allows them to get an immigration status if they cooperate with law enforcement. So that's the type of very narrow immigration representation we do of undocumented people. What you hear from the state legislature publicly is that they're concerned about some of the IOLTA grants being made to organizations that engage in policy advocacy, that engage in politics, or that represent broader categories of undocumented people, and that's just not us. There was a hearing at the legislature 2 weeks ago, last week. This is how crazy life is right now. Where Peter and Mary testified, and there was bipartisan support on the committee, on the dais of Legal Aid of North Carolina, as well as PISCA Legal Services in the West, which is a wonderful organization that serves 18 counties, and Charlotte Legal Advocacy in Charlotte. The complaints from the legislature are really about some of these grantees who are frankly receiving much smaller grants, who are not representing nearly as many people in real civil cases in North Carolina. So this is a scenario where the baby is getting thrown out with the bathwater. Why do I have to lay off 55 people as a result of this? Because in January, the economic impact for legal aid is of $500,000 a month. Okay, so that's what the math looks like. We cannot float $3.5 million of expense while we wait to see what the legislature will do. Nothing. And Alice, I'm so happy to share with you, is now on our board. And of course, our board is not, we just can't wait and see. So what does that mean? We've already closed our Rocky Mount office. Today, we announced that our Pembroke office, which has been open since 1978, which is an historic office that was started by a really famous Lumbee lawyer, Julian Pierce, is threatening to be closed. Our Goldsboro office is being closed, and there will be others. And the reason it's going to impact disproportionately rural communities is because we receive funding from big urban areas. Charlotte can give us $1 million grant to support legal services in Charlotte. That means we have to keep staff in Charlotte. We're funded there. We have grant obligations there. Small communities like Robinson County, like Goldsboro, they don't have those kinds of budgets where they can give hundreds of thousands of dollars to legal aid. So we use our federal money and our IOLTA grants to spread our access across the state. You guys know we have 48 rural legal deserts in North Carolina. We're in all of those, but we have to have this support to do that. So those are the facts. I wanted to make sure you had them. There are 4 slides that are going to be included in your packet. We couldn't show them because there's no AV, but you're going to see there's a dot map in the packet, and there's a little dot for every person we represented in North Carolina in 2024. I mentioned, so we closed 24,000 cases, and you'll see it. It's in every community. It's in all these rural legal deserts. You can see where we're representing people. There's an additional map that shows the location of each of our offices with red circles around those that I'm very worried we're going to have to eliminate, and yellow circles around ones that are sort of on like the warning list. So what we would ask of all of you is to help us share the message with people in your local communities who care about civil legal aid. If you can be a thought partner with us on how to break through to the folks who are freezing this funding at the legislature, we would be grateful. I want you to always know that I am open to feedback about the work that we do and how we provide legal services. If there's something we're doing that we need to improve, I'm always open to hearing that. We want to be a partner in the state's success. And we deeply believe, and I believe personally, that access to justice is something that all North Carolinians should have, regardless of income. So the final thing I have to ask is this. So there are 3 states. I would ask the state bar to consider, because of the IOLTA freeze and the impact that it's going to have, to consider whether you would want to do an optional on the dues invoice, the ability to make an optional gift to legal aid that the state bar would hold in trust to then distribute to legal aid. That's available. An option like that is available in 3 states. I have more information about that. That's Wisconsin, California, and Missouri, where, just on the invoice, it says, would you like to make a donation to a civil legal aid organization? In some states, there are multiple options. Some states are a 1, and then folks can make an optional gift. Peter can obviously talk about whether that's something that's doable, but I do think it's a way that the state bar could step in and help us make sure we can continue to provide access to justice. So I'm glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions for Ashley?
And Alice can answer questions as well. Yeah.
Ashley, is there a sense that if the IOLTA funds get unfrozen, money's continuing to flow obviously into those accounts.
Yes,
IOLTA still exists for all of our trust accounts.
yes.
So the balance presumably in the account is growing, it's just not being dispersed. When it gets distributed, is there any sense that that can happen in the near future? And if so, how it'll be restricted?
So we've been trying to get the state bar to, the legislature to unfreeze it. I think Mary estimates that it'll have about the same amount as it had last year. So there was about 15 million in interest last year. They put about 3 million in reserve. So, interest rates have stayed about the same. So you can expect, yes, that the money's going to be there. It's just sitting there. And it will sit there and continue to accrue through June. What the freeze says is that it can continue to pay administrative costs. So the folks who administer IELTA can continue to be employed. They continue to monitor our grants that we currently have, but they can't make any grants until July. Some of the, Peter has worked really hard on addressing some of the concerns that have been raised. Some of the proposals that the legislature has brought forward are changes to the board composition and changes to the way that the grants are administered. We are in agreement with all of those changes that have been proposed. Currently, federally, the Legal Services Corporation has a bipartisan board that gives grants. Things like that are very doable in terms of refining or changing or amending the process, and we have no objection to those proposals. But right now, it does not look like it's going to be unfrozen before the end of the year.
Any other questions for Ashley? Ashley, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. All right, we're gonna move on with the agenda. We will now hear the report from the Finance and Audit Committee. I'll call on soon-to-be President Catherine Fry to give the report.
The 2025 third quarter financial statements are posted on SharePoint. The Finance and Audit Committee.
Motion to recommend approval to the council coming from a committee does not require a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any chair the ayes have it, motion carries. Madam Fry.
Each year, the State Bar Council must set the annual membership fee amount. Dues are currently $300 and the maximum is $325. Following a review of 5-year projections and upon the advice of the executive director and controller, the Finance and Audit Committee recommends the 2026 dues remain set at $300.
So motion to recommend approval to council coming from a committee does not require a second. Or is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any chair the ayes have it, motion carries.
The Client Security Fund's financial statements in 2025-26 budget are posted on SharePoint. The Finance and Audit Committee recommends that they be approved.
Motion from a committee recommended to council coming from committee does not. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any chair ayes have it, motion carries.
We have one additional matter that we can handle in closed session during consideration of the DSA award nominations. So that concludes the current report of the Finance and Audit Committee.
Is there a second closed session? Thank you. We will now move on to appointments. The executive committee submits nominations to the council based on the recommendations from the Appointments Advisory Committee. Madam Fry.
We have 5 appointments for the Board of Law Examiners, each for a 3-year term. Stephen Baynard, Athena Fox Brooks, Shelley Blake Curran, Sherry Wilson Elliott, and Michael Green are all eligible for reappointment. And the Appointments Advisory Committee recommends the reappointment of all of those individuals to another 3-year term for the Board of Law Examiners.
Without objection, we will consider all those nominations in one motion. It says recommendation, of course, from committee does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any chair ayes have it, motion carries.
There are 3 appointments to be made to the Board of Continuing Legal Education, each for a 3-year term. And we must also appoint the board's chair and vice chair. Robert Ponton Jr., Addie M. Harris Rawls, and Serena N. Williams are all eligible for reappointment. The Appointment Advisory Committee recommends the reappointment of Judge Rawls and Serena Williams. Robert Ponton did not want to have another 3-year term, so his seat was open, and the board recommends, for the appointments committee, recommends the appointment of Brian Scott for Winston-Salem. The committee also recommends that Judge Ashley Parker be reappointed as chair and that Paul Capua be reappointed as vice chair.
Without objection, we will consider all 5 of those recommendations in a single motion and coming from the Appointments Advisory Committee. Again, no second is needed. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, being the chair, the ayes have it, motion carries.
There are 3 appointments to be made to the Board of Paralegal Certification. We will also appoint a chair and vice chair. Terry J. Marshall, a paralegal member, and Precious Vines Harris, a lawyer member, are both eligible for reappointment. Benita Powell, the current chair, is not eligible for reappointment. The Appointments Advisory Committee recommends the reappointment of Carrie J. Marshall and Precious Vines Harris, and the appointment of Regina Rudisill of Elizabeth City. The committee recommends that Precious Vines Harris be appointed to a 1-year term as chair, and that Carrie J. Marshall be appointed as vice chair.
Again, without objection, we'll take that as a single motion from the Appointments Advisory Committee. Is there further, no seconds needed, is there further discussion? I read a lot of names. While ago. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any chair, the ayes have it, motion carries.
There's 1 appointment to be made to the Client Security Fund Board, and we must also appoint a chair and vice chair. Erica D. Jones, the current chair, is not eligible for reappointment. The Appointments Advisory Committee recommends the appointment of Sonny Haynes of Winston-Salem to the board, and the appointment of James K. Dorsett as chair and Rich Costanza as vice chair.
That objection, we'll take those in a single motion. Coming from the committee does not require a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, if the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion carries.
Next quarter, we will have appointments for the LAP Board, and State Bar Foundation. You'll please remember to encourage interested lawyers to complete the interest form on the website. And that is the report of the Appointments Advisory Committee.
Thank you. We're now moving on to 2026 council meeting dates. We must establish the meeting dates for the coming year. The executive director's recommended dates are listed in the agenda. Is there a motion to set the council meeting dates and locations as listed in the agenda?
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And chair, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Yeah, I got that too. That's another thing. Rule amendments. We will now consider proposed rule amendments, beginning with the amendments for adoption. Proposed amendments to the rules governing admission to the practice of law submitted by the Board of Law Examiners were published for comment after the July meeting. No adverse comments were received. Do I have a motion to recommend adoption of these rules to the council?
So moved.
I have multiple motions. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And chair, the ayes have it, motion carries. We'll now move on to the proposed amendments for publication. I will read all the proposed amendments with the intent of considering the proposals as a group. If you have anyone you would like to discuss and pull for consideration, please let me know once I have finished reading them off. First one, proposed amendments to the rules of professional conduct, imputation of conflicts of interest. We have a proposed amendment to RPC Rule 1.10, imputation of conflicts of interest. The proposed amendments permit NC Department of Justice and public defender offices to resolve imputed conflicts of interest by timely screening the disqualified lawyer and providing written notice as described in the rules. Next is an amendment to the rules governing discipline and disability, Rule 0.0133, confidentiality. Proposed amendments clarify existing exceptions to grievance confidentiality and specify that the state bar may reveal the existence of a grievance investigation in connection with petition for non-compliance suspension pursuant to 27 NCAC 1B.135. Next, proposed amendment, this is for the approval of law schools, Rule 0.0105. Proposed amendment to the rules governing admission to NC State Bar modifies the acceptable education requirements to include other legal degrees if the applicant has also been licensed in another U.S. jurisdiction. Next, reinstatement from inactive status. The proposed amendments allow time spent as a spouse of a military service member who is required to relocate outside of North Carolina due to military orders to offset years of inactive status. Next, again with reinstatement from suspension. Proposed amendment allows time spent as the spouse of a military service member who is required to relocate outside of North Carolina due to military orders to offset years of suspended status. Those are all the proposed amendments for publication. Does anybody wish to discuss any particular one? Or any questions at all? Seeing none, I will take these as a group. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion to approve? Motion to publish, excuse me, thank you. Motion to publish these proposed amendments. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. We will now move on to the reports. First, the chair recognizes the council, Ms. Carmen Bannon, for the litigation report.
Thank you, sir. The litigation report for the preceding quarter is in your materials, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm gonna miss that. Thank you. Moving on, I'll call on Peter Bolak for the legislative report.
Just briefly give you an update. Ashley did a phenomenal job of explaining the current status of the IOLTA issue. As she mentioned last week, Mary and I were asked to appear before the House Oversight and Reform Committee to answer questions regarding the IOLTA board and the IOLTA grant process. Mary did an exceptional job, as you would expect, explaining the IOLTA program and answering any specific questions that the legislators had. As Ashley mentioned, there were questions surrounding the political speech and activities of some of the grantees in the immigration space and other public policy advocacy actions taken by IOLTA grantees, even though those actions and activities were not funded with IOLTA funds. We emphasize the importance of civil legal services to those who are unable to pay, and the stability that provides those families, but also that it is good for North Carolina and the economy to have stable families and a stable workforce. We agreed to follow up with them and answer any specific questions they may have. I sent a follow-up email to that committee this morning with additional information. They did mention at the end of the hearing that they would like potentially to have us back because there were still a lot of questions that they didn't have time to ask. I don't know if that will happen if we'll be called back, but if we are, I don't know if that will happen before the short session were to begin or take place in the spring. So we're still trying to resolve this issue. The unfortunate timing of the long session kind of coming to an end is that the legislature might not be back before April and ability to act. And so this freeze will have an actual, really unfortunate impact beginning in 2026 when since there's no grant money that's going out. We're going to do everything we can to try to get this resolved. The action that the next step that we're going to take here from the state bar is next week we'll be sending a very factual chronology and explanation to all the lawyers of the bar, just so everyone can know what's going on, what has happened, what is going on, and share some of this impact that Ashley shared with us. Unfortunately, when we've been going around these last few months and speaking about this issue, there are just a lot of others who don't know that this is happening, and I think at the very least we should make sure everybody's informed. So we'll be sharing that next week. That's my report.
I can say, and I think Catherine will back me up because both Catherine and I were at that hearing. Mary and Peter held their own, as you would imagine, and more so held their own. Some very tough questions were posed, and they answered them with class and dignity, as you would expect. And deep down, I think Peter kind of liked it. I was sitting behind, his little left foot was going crazy. Like, she's doing this, but no. Thank you for doing that. That's not fun, but they held their own. Probably better than anybody in this room could have. And I thank you for that. So, and if you get called back, I'll sit right behind you. All right.
Mr. Smith, is there a suggested script that counselors can send out to their districts? I know that you're gonna be sending this out, but I also know that that's one email out of thousands, and perhaps we can reinforce the issue. If there is often you folks will send us a suggested, so here's what happened at the last council meeting. I would appreciate some language that's been, if left to my own devices, I'm gonna have something to say. Might
The
not.
chair is aware. Second.
Thanks.
Be happy to do that.
No, and we've talked about that. It's just, we kind of wanted to see how last week went. I mean, this was literally last Wednesday. Right? Yeah, last Wednesday. And then, of course, we're planning on the meeting and all that, but that's something. We need to get something out with a lot of moving parts. We didn't want to, until that hearing happened. And we kind of got a sense of where things were and are they coming back, or are they not coming back in session, that is. So, yeah, we'll get something together.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Or will you get something together? Okay, all right. Moving right along, we'll hear from the authorized practice committee report and Chair Judge Takeo Lewis Blaylock. Sorry, I read a lot of names.
Did, I'll give you that. Good afternoon, everybody. AP, we worked, yesterday, we met at 11. We reviewed 13 complaints regarding the unauthorized practice of law. The committee voted to issue 5 letters of caution and voted to take no action on 2 matters, and we did not vote to dismiss any matters. The committee also voted to authorize council to seek an injunction in one matter, 24 AP 0050 against Sean Ferrero. Mr. Ferrero, who is the owner of IWillSaveYourHome.com, represented a North Carolina debtor in a foreclosure matter. In closed session, council updated the committee regarding the status of injunction proceedings filed against Tigers 50, Acute McDaniel, and Eric Olson. And for prepaid legal services, council advised the committee that the staff received no proposed amendments to existing prepaid legal services plans during the 3rd quarter of 2025. Council advised the committee that staff received 2 initial registration statements during the 3rd quarter of 2025. National Plan 26, National Plan Enhanced 26. Council advised the committee that staff mailed 125 renewal statements for 2026 on October 9th, 2025. The authorized practice committee is also working on studying a proposed advisory opinion about lay advocates and special education proceedings for the OAH, and council gave an update regarding that subcommittee. Finally, the authorized practice committee approved revisions to the guidelines for attorneys licensed in other jurisdictions. So for the executive committee meeting, at this time, I'd like to request a vote to adopt the recommendation of the authorized practice committee with respect to Mr. Ferrero to seek an injunction.
Okay, just as procedural, that is a recommendation from the authorized practice committee. This committee has to approve that, but not the full council. So, are there any procedural questions? Are there any questions for Takeo on that matter? Seeing none, this is a motion from a committee, does not require a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, again, the motion on the floor is to seek an injunction as Takeo spelled out. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, each of the ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you. Chair now calls on Daryl Davidson for report of the Communications Committee. Daryl.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Communications and Publications Editorial Board met yesterday, and guess what? We communicated. We had 2 action items. We approved the July 2025 minutes. We also approved the winter 25 edition that's coming out. We reviewed upcoming articles that will be published in the winter of 2025. One of them was embracing change, navigating the challenges and triumphs of aging in the legal profession. We also discussed the proposed article to be published in the future. Topics about AI and pro se litigants. That was pretty interesting. AI and LexisNexis was a topic also that was brought to our attention. Understanding the gap in thinking, practicing law between Gen Z attorneys and judges. That was a discussion also. I didn't know that Gen Z doesn't put periods after sentences. I did not know that until yesterday. That was just interesting to me. And articles on e-course, that seems to be a big one also that I think, should be forthcoming, should be coming. I did, we just in Iredell County went live 2 weeks ago, so we're still tangling with it. New article ideas were brought up, more articles on sole practitioners, tribal courts in the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. We talked about possibly doing an article since we had our meeting up in Cherokee this past summer, which was very, very interesting. We talked about doing an article about that experience and as well as the information that we received. And also articles on sovereign citizens in the court system, and whoever writes that, you better use a fake name. So, I'm just saying. And we also, Mr. Kozlowski talked about updates on the State Bar website. We're on schedule to meet the goal of completing the design and development of the North Carolina State Bar website. The site should be launched and ready for the April 2025 meeting. And the rollout on online digital version of the website. And that would be the report, the Communications and Publications Editorial Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Any questions? Thank you. We'll move along. Well, this one's sad. Judge Dorothy Hairston Mitchell for the Ethics Committee Board. I hear she wants to come back. I've heard that just once.
I don't know why you heard, or you may have heard that. Good evening, afternoon, everyone. The Ethics Committee met this morning at 9 o'clock, and we considered 4 items. 3 are going back to subcommittee. Proposed 2025 FBO 3 client consent to annual rate increase, inquiry of staff real estate client referral to law partners business, as well as inquiry of grievance non-disparagement clause as a condition of fee dispute resolution. And we have one that we wish to publish, which you've already heard about, proposed amendment to the rules of professional conduct, which we, like I said, recommended for publication, which was included in the materials for Friday, which is Rule 1.10, inquiry of public defender offices in a multi-county district.
Thank you,
Didn't have
Judge.
anything else.
Any questions for the Ethics Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next report. This is from DSA and recognize Brother Cobb for a motion.
We need to consider some nominees for the DSA award, and we need to go into closed session for that. But Peter, I wanted to ask you, do we need to do the adoption of the policy in
In open session.
We gotta do that.
Yeah, we can do that in open session. We can do it now. It's fine.
Do you want to explain?
Sure,
Your
absolutely.
work product, basically.
So there's a proposed policy in your materials. It actually, had one small tweak from the Distinguished Service Award Committee yesterday. The updated version was put in the Executive Committee folder. This is a policy for the committee to establish some clear procedures for the background check and criminal background check and disciplinary check process for the candidates who have been conditionally approved to receive the John B. McMillan Award. This was the product of a joint committee between the issues and DSA committees. It was passed out of the DSA committee yesterday, and we just have it here for final approval here from the executive committee.
I'm gonna take that as a motion from a committee which does not require a second.
So moved.
Further discussion, questions from anyone? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion to approve this new policy.
So moved.
I'm sorry, second, and no seconds required. It's the end of the day, y'all. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, giving chair the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Brother Cobb, do you have a further motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I would move at this time to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-31811A2. And are there any other subsections you would like to utilize?
A5.
And A5 at this time.
And I'll entertain your motion. Judge Hannah, I saw your hand very late. I'm sorry.
One of the first privilege, if I may,
Yes, Your Honor.
person that I want to hear it is not in the room, and that is Takia as chair of the Authorized Practice Committee. Earlier this year, I was receiving mail by US Postal Service and my personal email at home from someone who was notorious in the Gilbert County court system, for whom there was a gatekeeper order entered against this person for doing various things in the court system now. I'm just shaking right now.
There she is.
Anyway, she's funny. And so, talking about your committee, Chinese law is in effect. All I knew was that I contacted the Attorney General's office, first I contacted Judge's Chamber. For those that don't know me, I left the bench in 2018. But, I contacted the judge's office and told him I needed help. We then contacted the Attorney General's office. I had to go to court about it in Greensboro. And action was taken. And thanks to your committee, Ms. Iris. No longer bothers me. Nerves me because she knew where I lived and she took pride in announcing in open court that she lived a few blocks away from me. And I live by myself. All I have is a little 10-pound Jack Russell Terrier. And I can't tell you how much that did to me. Oh, but
It just goes to show the system does work.
it works.
The system
And
works.
we didn't talk about it.
The system works. All right. Thank you, Judge.
Oh.
All right, there is a motion to go into closed session for the rules that were cited. Is there a proper second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any chair that ayes have it. We're going into closed session. As soon as everybody clears the room and we go non. Excuse me, we have lines.
Okay.
See you, maybe that's essentially. Back. All right, let me remind everybody, now back to first for the other matter we've talked about in closed sessions category.
The finance and audit committee.
As that counts for a committee, and I do not believe it requires a second. Is there further discussion again on the employment matter? This is only on the employment matter discussed in closed session. Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any chair that ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Judge Kyle.
So on behalf of the Distinguished Service Awards Committee, I move that the executive committee approve the nominations of candidates A, B, and C discussed in closed session to be presented to the full council for presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award, subject to our standard due diligence check.
That is a motion from the committee. Is there further discussion or further motions? David.
Chairman, I make a substitute motion that we approve candidates B and C and table candidate A until the January meeting.
Second. There is a motion, substitute motion before that does require a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? The substitute motion for clarity is we table candidate A, we approve B and C as discussed in closed session. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Chair, the ayes have it. All right. Judge Cobb, anything else from DSA?
I just want to thank the committee members and for helping so much. Thank you. That's it.
Judge.
Thank you, Matt.
Happened to access. It's two consecutive meetings, they haven't been resolved.
That will be handled by President Fry.
Combine issues in access to justice back in January.